invite the legislators to the chambers so that we can start the Rules Committee. What is, what? Okay, we will, I'm going to call the Rules Committee to order. I'll call the roll. Legislator Bino? Here. Legislator DeRiggi Whitten? Legislator Minority Leader Abrahams? Legislator Schaefer? Here. Legislator Rhodes? Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell? Here. And I'm here, so we have a quorum. What we're going to do is the contracts portion of our meeting first. And then we're going to go into Toretta Estates, which we'll be doing simultaneously in rules and in planning, and then open, then we'll recess both committees and go into the full legislature. Okay, so, we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Rhodes, would you like to lead us in the pledge? Okie doke. I'm going to call the contracts now. A12, A13, A17. These are resolutions authorizing the Commissioner of Shared Services to approve additional funding for or award and execute blanket purchase orders between the county and Contemporary Computer Systems Services, Pitney Bowes, and Fairway Golf Corporation. B13, a resolution authorizing the county executive to award and execute a contract between the county and GGG Construction Corp. E32, E33, E34, E35, E36, E37, E38, E39. These are resolutions authorizing the county executive to execute personal services agreements or amendments to personal services agreements between the county and Leadership Training, Inc., the Safe Center, Euro Lloyd Travel, Camp Dresser, McKee and Smith, Hardesty and Hanover Construction, Bi-Coastal Productions, Cornell Cooperative Extension, Raymax Consulting. E40, a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an amendment to an agreement between the County of Nassau and the National Development Council. These items are moved by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, seconded by Minority Leader Abrahams. We also need to untable E29 of 2022. It's a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an amendment to a personal services agreement between the county and CG3PL Engineering. Motion to untable moved by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator Bino. All in favor of untabling that item signify by saying aye. Aye. So that's untabled. And before we start calling individual contracts, E37 of 2022, which I just called with Bicoastal Productions, has to be tabled. The Inspector General has identified an issue with the contract which will not be corrected in time for today's meeting. So a motion to table by Minority Leader Abrahams, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. All in favor of tabling E37 signify by saying aye. Those opposed? That item is tabled. Okay, so now we'll go into the contract, starting with probation. E32, 2022. Oh, we are?
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Joe Shalero, Fiscal Officer for the Nassau County Department of Probation. This is a contract for the JDC Educational Program by Leadership Training Institute. This is a contract with LTI for the January 1st to 2022 through December 31st, 2022 program year. LTI has developed and continues to provide a challenging and instructional program appropriate to each student's age and educational level in language arts, science, technology, mathematics, social studies, and physical education in an unconventional setting, that is, the JDC. A student's stay at the JDC can range from 1 day to over 2 years. This program takes the place of their home school education. It is not a supplement to their home school education because they can be there for an indeterminate amount of time. So in essence, the JDC becomes their home school when they're there for an extended period of time. This program has provided an extremely unique program to a unique student population. Any questions on the program or the contract?
Any questions on this one? Oh, do you have questions? I'm sorry.
So this is one of the contracts that we were notified, we're awaiting a report from the IG. I'm not sure what the question was that's outstanding.
I think the question referred to an additional evaluation and the terms of the contract. On terms of the evaluation, LTI has I incorporated that into the opening statement. LTI has developed and provides a challenging instructional program appropriate to each student's age. As I said, it's a very diverse population and age group. They could have a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old or even an 18-year-old in there. It takes the place of their program. LTI has developed this unique program and has continued to perform very well in meeting the needs of it. We actually almost thought it was a sole source provider. We did initiate an RFP in November of 22. We had a very exhaustive review of that RFP, which is why we're just getting to submit the contract now for this year. It's a mandated program. We need to provide an education there. So during 2021, we continue with LTI until we developed a conclusive agreement on continuing with LTI, where there was one other contender. In the committee's evaluation, LTI provided the best value to the county and to the students at the JDC and met our needs the best of any other program. There was only one other program in contention. It was not in a secure facility. It was not in a secure detention facility. It was an outplacement facility, and all in all, LTI won the favor of the committee as being the best direction for the county to go in and providing the education at the JDC. We also had the Office of the Attorney General, Inspector General, and Compliance in concert with us in many of the discussions that we had during the year, seeking their advice and consult on some of the questionable areas that we had, because again, it was not a snap decision. It took a lot of time on we were a 6-member committee, and we really drilled it down to saying that this is the best decision for not only the county, or not only for it's a mixed bag, the students, the residents at the JDC, as well as for the county. It's a mandated program. We're in a difficult position. The county and probation and the JDC are in a difficult position in a situation such as this, because we are in essence providing an educational program and have to evaluate a program according to the state mandates. We're not educators. We have to seek the resource for this. LTI has developed a program. Originally, it developed a program over 30 years ago. I don't know the last time an RFP was performed on it, but again, in 2020, we knew to meet compliance with the county contractual processes, we needed to do it, as well as we should do it to make sure that we're providing the best program to the students at the JDC.
Thank you, Mr. Solero. The IG is participating remotely, so if she wants to weigh in as to whether she has a concern about this contract, we would invite her to do so.
Good afternoon, presiding officer. May I speak?
Yes, yes.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. That item, the leadership training item, those issues were addressed by the administration.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Solero.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, before you leave.
Yes.
Hi, good day, sir.
Hi.
How is the performance of LTI determined? How are we benchmarking and
Monthly, this year, we've instituted what was supposed to be monthly reviews. Our first one is those scheduled for next week, where on a monthly basis, we sit, the director of the facility, myself, and or the director of probation sit down with the principals at LTI and evaluate students' performance, students' instructional levels, their instructional levels, the interaction with the students, and provide I don't want to say criticism, but constructive advice on areas of improvement we'd like to see, areas that we're satisfied with, and develop a greater exchange, informational exchange with them, with the management of the facility, as well as probation.
and that's a monthly documented experience?
It will starting next month. No, starting next week. I'm sorry. It will be monthly.
And what were we doing prior?
It was informal. It was an informal. The director of the facility and the assistant director of the facility would meet with them on a regular basis. They have a classroom within the JDC, and
I've been there.
There would be an informal, just an informal review and participation and conversation with them. Part of the intent in this contract was to formalize that. That had never been incorporated into the contract before. We incorporated that into this contract, having monthly evaluation meetings and performance meetings.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next contract is with Housing and Homeless Services, E40 of 2022, with the National Council for Community Development.
Good afternoon. Kevin Crean, Officer of Community Development. As you referenced, item E40-22 is an amendment to a community development contract with National Development Council. The contract amendment will add $1.3 million and add a new activity. That activity being the Veterans Support Programs grant program. Essentially, this will expand the contract to allow for veteran services organizations to participate in what was previously the Main Street Recovery Grant Program. The veterans programs, veterans organizations were ineligible to apply under the Main Street program because of their differing nonprofit status, but this additional program will open up that the funding to such organizations.
Could you just we were just curious about the amounts. We were told that the amount was $1 million, and this is 1.3.
Yes, the $1 million was supplementally appropriated on March 31st by the legislature. The additional funding comes from a prior appropriation that was passed in July. There was $1 million appropriated at that time for veterans support programs. That program, from what I understand, is not being run by our office, but it was undersubscribed at the current time, so there was additional funding available. So the Office of Planning and Veteran Services identified about 110 nonprofit veterans organizations that will be eligible to receive grants under this new program. So some of that money is coming from the prior appropriation. And any funds that are left over will go back into the veteran support program.
About how much of that number is administrative expenses?
Less than 10%.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on this one? Legislator Bino?
Hi, can this money be used for bricks and mortar?
This is essentially funding to support their operational costs. It's a grant, so it's
No capital?
there's no cap. No.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next contract is with IT. Next two contracts, starting with A12 with Contemporary Computer Services.
Good. All right. Good afternoon, Joe Jacovina, Deputy Commissioner Information Technology. A1222 Contemporary Computer Services, Inc., known as CCSI. This is to notify and request approval for additional funding for blanket purchase order BPNC 2228 that was awarded to CCSI. This blanket provides for computer repair and maintenance for older IT equipment no longer under manufacturer's warranty, extending the useful life of this equipment for the county. This bid solicitation was originally awarded to a different vendor. However, this vendor did not meet the county's expectations, and the county did not exercise our renewal option after year one. The county then awarded the solicitation to the next lowest bidder, CCSI. The amount over the next 4 years is approximately $1.2 million, although IT expects this amount to be lower as we complete several projects that will eliminate the need for certain older equipment in current use. The original bid was viewed by 23 vendors and 3 submitted bids. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Just, could you go over that again? Was this originally awarded to another bidder?
Yes, it was.
And did they perform services under the contract?
They did perform services, but it was not up to my expectations and standards.
Okay. So then, after a year, you then awarded the same contract to the next lowest bidder?
Yes, the CCSI was the next lowest bidder.
I didn't know that the municipality had the opportunity to do that once it's already awarded a contract, that it can then move to the next
During
lowest.
the entire process, once we evaluated the vendor and determined they weren't meeting our expectations, I was involved with discussions with legal. They assured us that they followed us through the process. They assured us that we were meeting the procedures that the county had to follow. Robert Cleary was involved, and purchasing was involved.
Okay. I wasn't aware that was an option. I thought once the contract was awarded, that if there's a problem, then you'd have to just go out for a new contract.
Well, we did. There were 3 reasons when we were discussing with purchasing and Robert how would be the best way to move on from the vendor that wasn't performing adequately. The first was that we can't have a gap in this service. These servers and equipment is used public safety, the police department, Firecom, DSS, all throughout the county. We have equipment that this vendor services. We can't have a gap. Normally, when a blanket is expiring, we would start the bidding process 6 to 9 months early. And it was determined in discussions again with Robert and purchasing that the best way to keep this service moving forward and not have a gap in service, especially for our public safety service, would be to award to the next lowest bidder. The second reason was CCSI agreed to maintain their pricing that they submitted in their 2019 bid. Given the cost of living and inflation, we fully expected if we went out to bid again, it would come in much higher in 2022. And finally, CCSI has decades-long track record with the county. They performed very well. They were just underbid last time, and that's why they weren't awarded the blanket. So for those three reasons, and in discussions with purchasing, we determined that this would be the best way to provide these services for the county.
Okay. Any other questions?
Would it be okay to have the Inspector General just state on the record that she's okay with this process? Because it does seem a little bit unusual to me, honestly. And Jody, if you're there.
Hi, legislator. How are you? I'm sorry. Legislator, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you, Jody.
I beg your pardon. And this, yes. So A1222, we had a couple of issues identified. However, the administration addressed our concerns, and we do not have any additional concerns regarding this contract.
Did you feel that it complies with our procurement process as far as not having to go out for an additional bid?
We had, this contract we discussed with the Chief Procurement Officer's office, and there was nothing that really threw up any red flags for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Legislator Bino.
I'm just confused by this. I'm sorry, Inspector General Franzese, if you could, are you stating that you have no problem in the event that there's a problem with the initial awardee, that we can automatically then defer to the second most qualified bidder? Even after they've started work, the initial awardee started work under the contract?
I am sorry. At this point, my office, we thoroughly reviewed this, and we didn't find any sort of issues. However, if the legislator's uncomfortable with this, we are happy to dig deeper and see if there's anything that is untoward.
So you're saying, I'm just because it just seems so unusual to me, that this would be acceptable as a best practice or acceptable in other circumstances, in other situations?
It is. I'm thinking.
I'm sorry, Inspector General, I'm waiting. It might seem as though I'm asking the same question, but there was a new element or a new component to my question. Are you stating that this process would be acceptable in other circumstances?
Legislator Bino, I want to make sure I respond to the question you're asking. The question you're asking, though, however, is beyond the scope of our review of the vendor as well as the contract. If there are additional questions you need us to dig into, or if you request us to dig into, obviously we would be happy to do so.
Oh, I understand. Quite frankly, I think this question would be for our Chief Procurement Officer. Is he there? Mr. Cleary?
Yes, this is Robert Cleary.
Hi, good day, Mr. Cleary. So there was a question raised, which was one that we were pondering prior to even the presiding officer raising the question regarding whether this is should be considered a best practice to utilize the second most qualified bidder as opposed to the initial awardee in the event that there's a problem with the performance of the initial contractor. That we should just defer to the second person instead of going out, letting out the bid again.
So in my opinion, there were some extraordinary circumstances in this particular case. I should put it in context. This is a purchasing bid. Purchasing language does allow for going to the next bidder when you default on a vendor. In this particular case, we did not default because we were at the end of the first year term. Had we not been at the end of the first year term, I believe we should have defaulted the vendor. This was a mission critical situation. It was warranting, I think, an emergency declaration in the absence of going to the next low bidder. We have seen extraordinary inflation. So for practical reasons, going out to bid probably will not work in our favor. It's not like you couldn't go out to bid, but there were a few things, and I would like the IT department to maybe speak to this further. But my understanding, as it was presented, was that this vendor, the current vendor, or the previous vendor, the NPA, was coming in and installing stuff that had the ability to kill us, basically, at least temporarily, operationally, in critical public safety areas. And so, as I said, that would warrant an emergency declaration. And if you were to award an emergency contract, it would be very reasonable to go to the last bid and not go to the next low bidder. That is a best practice that has been used in other places. The county attorney maybe could speak to this more, but it has been mentioned that the federal government also uses this process, that in the event that a vendor fails, you can go to the next low bidder. So there is some precedence for this. This situation is a little bit different because we didn't formally default them, but I believe it's fully justified because we haven't seen any evidence in the last bid or for the last several years that there's any other vendor that's out there. Now there might be, but the reality is that there's also the inflation process that we've seen in the industry, and IT services have certainly been hit with that. So for all of those reasons, this seemed like the rational approach to addressing this particular problem.
So why did we not default the vendor?
Only because it was defaulting a vendor when their term has lapsed may not make a lot of sense. We did explain to them that they weren't being renewed because of their performance. They had several conversations with the IT department about their failures. It wasn't like we pulled the trigger at the end. They had lots of notice and opportunity to cure, but they'd failed. They clearly were in over their heads. The three bids that we got on this on the original solicitation, the first vendor was thrown out entirely as being non-responsive because they hadn't performed these services and didn't demonstrate that they could. The second one, which was much lower priced than the proposed vendor, which was the previous incumbent, it suggested on paper that it had the experience, but once we were in contract, they failed repeatedly. And again, if we had been 6 months in and we were 6 months away from the lapse, we would have formally defaulted them. We did not do that in this case. I suppose we could do it retroactively.
I'm just wondering also, when did we identify that, and I can ask this of the gentleman here on the floor. I'm sorry, your name has escaped me.
Joe Jacovina.
Thank you, Joe. When did you identify that this vendor was not performing according to your standards?
It was around the September timeframe was the first error. It was on a police server. It could have caused catastrophic damage to our server. We then met with the vendor. We had several conference calls with the vendor. We asked them to proceduralize what the error was and how they were going to prevent it going forward. We monitored them very closely. There was a second occurrence towards the end of the year, and at that point in time, I made a decision, a recommendation to Commissioner Stanton that we move on from this vendor. We then started the process of discussions with Robert and his team with purchasing and legal in order to determine the best method to move on from the vendor without having a gap in service. We have zero tolerance for having the service, even for one day, have a gap in this service, only because of the critical mission that these servers support.
Okay, so it was September and then sometime in December.
later in the year, late in 2021, yes. And then we
And
went,
at that point, we could have then defaulted the contract, because they were still in the one-year contract, correct?
we were about 2 months out.
We were already 2 months out, so the,
If it was, the contract expired in March 2022.
okay,
So once we started these discussions to determine what would be the best way to not have a gap in service, in discussions with Robert and his team, we decided that as we move forward, we develop the appropriate documentation to support moving on from this vendor. And then at that point, the decision was made to wait for the March deadline, March 12th, I believe it was. And the CCSI then assumed the services on March 13th.
okay, my concern is that I would never want to see this as business as usual, that we're not defaulting when someone is not performing under the contract, and then we, you know, as a secondary choice, we go with the second lowest or most qualified bidder. I think that, you know, given the fact that they were in the one-year contract period, that it was, honestly, we were too short on time to default so that we could be in compliance with what would be appropriate, because you defaulted the contract. But in this case, we did not default, and now we're just awarding to the second bidder, and I just don't want to see that to be a best practice of this county or business as usual.
Duly noted.
If I'm,
Okay.
this was an extraordinary circumstance. I agree that would not be the normal practice.
Okay, thank you.
What I would request is, as we continue to go through the contracts, that somebody from the county attorney's office come down and just tell us that this is a permissible action under the general municipal law. So maybe it's you know, obviously we have a number of other contracts to go through. So, Chris, if you could have somebody from the county attorney's office come down and say, what we did here is something that's permissible under the law. Okay.
Daniel Gregg Ware.
Okay. Right. So. Okay. Any other questions on this contract?
Presiding officer, we're not tabling it, right? We're just gonna.
At this
or we're
point,
gonna-
no. I think we'll wait till we hear from the county attorney's office, and we can consider whatever action we want at that
Okay,
time.
that's fine.
Okay. You want to do A13 while you're up there?
Yes, thank you very much. A1322, Pitney Bowes Inc. This is to request authorization and to award a blanket purchase order for a 5-year lease for one Pitney Bowes relay inserter system with all accessories, training, and maintenance. This inserter system will replace a current lease that expired March 22nd, 2022. Total cost is $137,553.60 over a 60-month period. Any questions?
Any questions? Nope. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Next two contracts are with the police department. E33 is with the Safe Center of Long Island.
Good afternoon, William Field, Inspector with the Police Department. Item E33-22 is an amendment to a contract with the Police Department and the Safe Center Long Island Incorporated. Safe Center provides the Police Department with some essential services, including support services for domestic violence, sex abuse, and child abuse. The amendment is to extend for 1 year.
Any questions on this contract? Okay, you want to do the next one?
E34-22, this is a contract between the Police Department. This contract is with the Police Department. However, this is an amendment in order to clarify the procedure for emergency hotel bookings for the Sheriff's Office. This is to assist them in order to get hotel booking services when they have adolescent offenders and things like that, where they don't have a lot of time to make the bookings.
Any questions on this contract? It's not. Thank you, Inspector.
Thank you.
Parks Department. First contract for Parks is A17 Fairway Golf Car Corporation.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is a bid, Darcy Bellier, Parks Commissioner. This is a bid requesting a blanket purchase order for the lease of golf carts. The prior contract had expired. It would be for 150 electric golf carts. Blanket purchase order not to exceed $1.186 million for a term of 5 years, and this will help us to transition to all electric fleet.
Has the Department of Parks ever considered purchasing golf carts?
We have, and I did do some due diligence and check the records. We've been leasing since the late 1990s. The problem with purchasing them would be that they have a lifespan, and after 5 years you have to decommission carts just because of how much they're used. At Eisenhower, they're running twice a day, and the cost of a new cart is $4,500 to $5,500 a cart. And because of the heavy use, the life expectancy gets lowered. So it makes more sense to lease them and maintain them, and then just get a new fleet as they get decommissioned.
These are replacements that have to be made because of the lifespan?
Exactly.
In other words, all the ones that you're replacing are done, essentially?
For the most part, yes.
And those are owned?
No, this is another lease contract.
No, I know this one is, but the ones that are being replaced.
No, we've been leasing since the late 1990s.
So you have to do this.
Exactly.
You have to do it one way or another.
Correct.
And what is the cost of the electric versus the other, whatever else is available?
That's a bad question. A gas electric golf cart is estimated between $4,500 and $5,500 to purchase.
And their equivalent, I guess, what would be gasoline, I suppose?
Yeah, that's a cost for new gas or electric, but we're not paying for.
They're equivalent.
Yes.
And then the running costs would be lower, I suppose, for the electric.
I'm sorry?
The running costs would be lower, and the maintenance costs would be lower, right?
Maintenance is much lower, and we're not paying for the cost of gas, which we know is sky high right now.
Right. Okay.
And
Sounds like a good
also,
deal.
better for the environment, and we also have GPS systems. We have 80
GPS?
GPS, which actually doesn't allow the carts to leave certain areas and drive onto the green.
I thought it was for the people using it.
No, well, two things. It actually serves two purposes. It actually helps you with your range if you're a golfer, to see how far your distance is from the hole. But it also, almost like those dog fences, it keeps the carts, like it stops the cart from driving onto playable areas, which helps the maintenance of the course.
Oh, and you've got it programmed so that they can calculate the distance to the hole?
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah, nice perk for our golfers.
And you can't drive it up on top of the green like some people.
Correct. It actually disables the electric carts.
Right.
So we can't do that with the gas carts, but with the electric we can.
Legislator Schaefer?
Hi, Commissioner, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So I had a question. You mentioned that we maintain them?
We do, because it requires battery replacements, winter maintenance, when the carts aren't being used.
Okay, so with the lease, there's nothing like covered under, I'm thinking of like a car. You might maybe go to the dealer and get things covered.
There isn't. There is a line item in the bid for maintenance. I believe it's $100 an hour, but that's only when there's a problem with the cart.
Okay, it's more cost effective for us to take care of it ourselves, I
Yes,
assume?
and certainly the electric carts are a lot less maintenance than the gas.
Okay, great.
Less car components.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Sure. Minority Leader Abrams.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
The period of the lease is 5 years. I'm assuming we recoup this money in that 5-year.
Oh,
rent that we spent.
absolutely. Carts bring in a considerable amount of money every year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you tell us what that amount is?
Should have been prepared with that. I don't think I have that answer for you.
But you're convinced that the 1.86 that we were gonna spend over the 5-year period in leasing is less than the amount that we generate in revenue?
We probably bring in more than that in 1 year.
Okay. Good to hear.
Don't quote me on that, but I believe it to be ballpark around that amount.
Fair enough.
Alrighty, any other questions? Nope. Let's go on to the second, next one, which will be Cornell Cooperative Extension, E38. we have the two contracts with Parks, Cornell Cooperative Extension and Raymax, which is E39.
Sorry, I wasn't prepared. I should have brought everything up with me. Cornell first. So this is Cornell Cooperative Extension in Nassau County, Personal Services Agreement for operation of the East Meadow Farm and to enhance ongoing programming through the Cornell Cooperative Extension Administrative Office, which is located in Eisenhower Park. It's a term for 2 years, option to renew for an additional two-year terms. Provides for $200,000 per year in 2 installments. Our accounting practices in place do not allow for the second installment to be paid out until we have justification and receipts for the first $100,000. And I've also been working with them to make some additions and enhancements to their programs, which would include enhancing the amount of vendors in the annual farmers market. And Taste of New York, which is located at the rest stop on the LIE, they have a kiosk that did not work well in Penn Station, and that's actually going to be brought to Eisenhower Park. And it basically is vending for all kinds of locally grown or produced items here in our area. And we're also going to be increasing the amount of 4-H classes and school group hands-on tours at East Meadow Farm as well.
Any questions? All sounds good.
Moving on to Raymax. This is a personal services agreement for the administration of the Empire State Games for the physically challenged. We're proud to announce it's being held for the first time in 3 years, June 2nd to 4th at the Mitchell Athletic Complex, also at Nassau Community College, and housing some students at Hofstra. And we're expecting over 1,000 athletes this year for that weekend. And this contract provides for the coordination of this event on behalf of Nassau County. It's $23,000 a year, 3 years length of term with a 2-year option to renew. And Susan Maxwell, she was the former New York State coordinator for this event. She began working with the county when the state said that they were no longer going to fund the Empire State Games. So we're very lucky to have her. She's been involved for over 35 years. So this is her company.
Very good. Any questions? No?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back to 8/12, 2022 is the contract with Contemporary Computer Services.
Hi, Dan Gregoire, Deputy County Attorney. I understand that the legislator had some questions about this package. I reviewed the materials before this was presented to the legislature, and I believe that it does comply with all applicable county procurement procedures and general municipal law.
Okay. Yeah, so then it is permissible after the first year of performance by the low bidder
certainly the relevance. I mean, typically these bids are kept open for at least 180 days. The vendor had to accept that his proposal was valid longer than that 180-day period, which the vendor has. Certainly, we would not like it to extend much beyond 1 year. There's no specific guideline as to how long that can extend until, but certainly, under these circumstances, and by no means is this should be, normal practices with the county. This is under extraordinary circumstances. So.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Gregoire?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Next contract was with the Department of Public Works.
Good afternoon, Ken Arnold, Commissioner of Public Works.
Good afternoon.
So B13 is a construction contract for replacement of handicap ramps that located at various county roads that were resurfaced as part of PR 1, 2, and 3. There were 4 bids received, and 3G Construction was the lowest responsible bidder. Their MWBE is at 5% for the project.
Any questions on this contract?
it's only germane, Ken, to what we just heard in regards to the IT contract, but I did want to ask you, it's not specific to this contract, but more to the practice. There is currently a contract that I believe that that the county is enduring or undertaking with Centennial Park, which I know you had communicated to my office that contract needed to be rebid. And
Correct.
I guess because it doesn't have the same urgency as the IT contract that we just heard about, but it sounds like in that case, I guess Mr. Cleary could weigh in on this one as well. It sounds like because that contract doesn't have the same urgency, we're deciding to rebid that contract.
No.
We're not rebidding that contract.
No, we're rebidding it. We did look at the other low bidders, and the third low bidder was willing to take the bid. However, when we looked at his responsibility determinations, he would not be found responsive. And at that point, we decided that we're going to rebid the contract.
Okay, and the source of the reason why we're rebidding, is it because the scope has changed with the project?
Because the time that has lapsed, we don't believe none of the bidders will keep their bids because their prices have increased since the bids were opened. And as part of that, since we're going to rebid it for that purpose, we do want to make a change associated with the playground equipment because we've made other changes at other parks. We want to standardize to make sure all the parks have the same equipment if we can get to that point.
Okay, so what's, I guess just to make sure if I'm clear, in the case with the IT, there was, obviously you could answer this, but I'm just summarizing to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. In the case with the IT, there was the second vendor was still potentially able to do what the first vendor agreed to in terms of the scope. In the event with Public Works, in regards to the contract with Centennial, none of the vendors were able to, I guess, provide the same pricing that they were first responded to.
Correct.
Okay. And any reason why we had a delay on not being able to get the work up and running before their pricing would have expired, or their response to
the low bidder, we had a long protracted back and forth with them to get them to submit all that package properly. We submitted the package to the Ledge approved the package. When we went to issue the notice of award to them, they at that point decided that they could not do the job any further.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this contract? Okay, why don't you move on to E35?
So E35 is a contract amendment associated with design services for our SCADA improvements at our various sewage treatment facilities. This is with Camp Dresser McKee and Smith. This is a contract extension for 3 years at $250,000. The reason behind the amendment was that this initially was put together as one contract for the design firm to put out. As we went through the process, we realized that each plant needed its own design construction contract, which lengthened the whole program.
Okay. Any questions? No. On to E36.
E36 is another contract amendment with Hardesty and Hanover. It's associated with the construction management of the Bayville Bridge project. When we bid Bayville Bridge, it was right at the time of COVID. In this case, recognizing that the vendor was going to walk away from his bid if we did not issue a notice to proceed right away, we issued a limited notice to proceed, even though working with the Office of Management and Budget, we did not want to start the program until a little later. So by issuing a limited notice to proceed, the vendor was able to order the equipment, but we held off on doing construction work until the county's financial situation was more stable. As such, we had our construction manager start early, and this amendment is for funding that we needed to pay him for that additional time.
Any questions? No? Okay. Last one is E29, untabled item.
Okay, so E29 is a contract amendment with CG3PL. They are managing our HUD-related related reimbursements from Sandy work. The contract expired, and this is an extension to get to the end point of all the projects that they're managing.
Okay. Any questions on this? Okay, thank you, Ken. Yep, I think we're ready to go with a vote, including contracts E32, E40, A12, A13, E33, E34, A17, E38, E39, B13, B35, B36, and E29. Any public comment on these contracts? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, they carry unanimously. So what we're going to do now is keep rules open and invite the planning committee to open a committee meeting as well. We have to consider, actually you'll have to untable the Toretta Estates to be considered by both committees, and then it will be immediately sent to the full legislature for consideration. So we'll get you. I guess with the, since we're waiting, we'll do with the Rules Committee. I'm going to call item, I'm going to call item 11-22, a resolution to authorize the release of surety bond and escrow deposit covering improvements on the map of Toretta Estates. Motion is made by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator and Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell. So it's open in the Rules Committee. Okay.
At this time, I will call the Planning, Development, and Environment Committee to order, and I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Legislator Arnold Drucker. Legislator Sheila Bino. Ranking Member Carrier Solage.
Here.
Legislator Denise Ford. Legislator John Giuffre.
Here.
Vice Chairman Rose Walker. And Chairwoman Laura Schaefer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, so there's one item to be on table today, which is clerk item number 11-22. Clerk item number 11-22 is a resolution to authorize the release of the surety bond and escrow deposit covering improvements on the map of Toretta Estates, situated in Farmingdale, Town of Oyster Bay, County of Nassau, New York. Can I have a motion to untable? Moved by Legislator Ford, okay, and seconded by Legislator Walker. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, motion is untabled. Who's here to speak on this item?
Ken Arnold, Public Works Commissioner. So this is an item to release the bond associated with Toretta Estates. The department has done its review, and all the issues associated with what the bond was held for was addressed, and the department is recommending release.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that's recommending the release as well? I thought I'd heard something about Planning Commission, or no?
I believe the Planning Commission already, we wouldn't be here if they didn't already do that.
Great, okay. Okay, can you just tell me what public improvements are actually covered by this bond?
Public, let's see, I don't know if I have that in front of me. I know Deputy Commissioner Sean Sally, who was here, went through that. It's associated with, just double check here. Sidewalks, curbing, drainage facilities, all the things that are common to the subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
I know the wall is not one of the items covered.
Okay. Are there any other legislators that have comments or questions? Legislator Drucker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if it would be better, before I ask the Commissioner some questions, if we heard from the adjacent homeowner? I'm sorry? No, I'm saying, I will ask the Commissioner, but maybe we can hear from the gentleman also, because...
I don't think it matters. I think you can just ask your questions and then
All right,
we can
that's
go
fine.
back and forth if we need to.
Okay. Commissioner, so this item was tabled a couple of weeks ago to allow for the county to revisit the location, verify any of the complaints that the adjoining homeowner had when he was here, and whether or not, you know, all of the conditions and requirements by the developer were performed as per the terms of the escrow agreement. Can you tell us in as much of a detailed fashion as you can how his complaints, the homeowner's complaints, have been either addressed or whether they're beyond the scope of the county's fiduciary obligations with respect to the release of the escrow?
So it's the latter. I spoke with both my inspectors and Deputy Commissioner Sally before he left county service, and all the conditions of the bond have been addressed.
Do you know what those conditions were?
Not top of my head, no. I would have to go back and, I know everything that was built according to the plans and specifications, and it was inspected and found acceptable.
Do you know if there was a re-inspection done after we tabled this item a couple of weeks ago?
I do not believe there was another inspection, no.
I thought that we were gonna table it so that they had another re-inspection.
I'm sorry.
Legislator Bino?
Yes, I recollect clearly that during the last time that we met and discussed this item, I asked the question whether we went out in conditions that would have allowed us to observe the concerns of the homeowner. And it was answered no, and then I said, well, I think we should go out and observe that, that property under those conditions, which would be rain. And I believe someone from that side laughed and said, let's put on our boots or something, and that we were going. And so it was my understanding that we were gonna go back out and look at that property under those conditions.
Otherwise, why was it tabled?
I could say that I have gone out to the property. I've seen it in the rainy weather. I've seen it on a gorgeous day. I've tried to make sure that it's in my district, so I drive by it often. And there is no puddling, there is no piles of dirt that would have washed down. None of that is visible through any different type of weather. So, and we've had some really gorgeous weather, and we've had some really crummy weather. So you would think that, you know, things would have washed down and they would have been visible, even if it was just a pile of dirt.
Legislator Walker, I certainly appreciate that you went the extra yard and did that yourself, but I thought that we were tabling it so we can have someone from DPW go out there and assess it too.
I thought you guys wanted to go out there.
We did
That was my assumption.
with DPW. We thought we would go out there with them. That's what
Okay,
Sean
I thought you were
Sally had
just
said
doing
last
that
time.
yourself, yeah. I'd already been out there.
I don't know what I'm looking at. I mean, I don't know what I'm looking at.
Well, Commissioner, you'd said the bond doesn't cover the wall itself.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. And I know that I've spoken to a number of people, and I was at the first meeting, and there were some plantings that were going to be done, that Mr. Lapidus's attorney agreed to having done, or being done at some point in the future. I don't know, and when he is up, I will find out if that has happened yet. But
Again, my understanding is those plantings are not part of the bond.
right, no, that I know. Yeah.
Okay.
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 I think.
Mr. Arnold, this is an item that authorizes the release of the surety bond and their cash escrow deposit filed with the Office of the Nassau County Planning Commission. So the commission accepted both to secure the cost of public improvements. Now, you've described those public improvements as, for example, roads, sidewalks, curbs, drainage, right?
Yes.
And that is the limit of what the Department of Public Works under this bond can do is look and see whether those public improvements are up to the county standards.
Correct. And
Has-
we double checked and, because there was the concern with the wall, and the wall was not one of those items.
All right, so the wall and the adjoining property owners is not within the county's jurisdiction in terms of determining whether or not to release the bond.
Correct.
And by law, once you have looked at the public improvements that these bonds were submitted for, by law, once those public improvements are deemed to be adequate, the county has to release the bond.
Yes.
Right. So regardless of whether there's issues with the adjoining property owner that again, those property owners have a problem with the development, the county cannot, as a matter of law, continue to hold the bond and security when it's already determined that the public improvements are satisfactory.
Correct.
Okay. And to do so exposes the county itself to liability.
I would assume so, yes.
Right. Okay.
Okay. I'm happy to let Mr. Lapidus come up and comment if he wishes to. Thank you, Commissioner.
Hi. There's not much I can add. I gave you pictures that my land is eroding. It's there. You did receive my emails this morning
Yes,
with the
I did.
16 pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And it speaks for itself.
Did you plant anything there yet? Because I know that was something that was discussed.
I didn't plant anything there because I cannot plant anything because the land is sliding. Whatever I put there, I have to raise it 2 or 3 feet in order to give it some. There's no way for me to put foundation on.
But I remember at that meeting that was agreed to, that you were going to plant, and I understand it's still early sort of in the season to do that, but that would be what would maintain the soil, what would hold it together, would to be to make some plantings there.
Right, but again, in order for me to do that, the land is going to run off. The land is sliding, so it's going to slide onto somebody else's property, which is not mine. So I cannot actually plant something that's not mine. I mean, I wasn't planting that. I was going to put some topsoil seeds and put grass there, but I can't because of this land. And the pictures I showed you, there's no way for me. The only way I could plant anything there is I have permission from the homeowners telling me if something happens to my property, I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if I plant it, it's not going to stay. It's just going to be washed away, knocked over by the wind.
Right.
If it was flat, it would be different. But I don't think I can plant anything. If you see the pictures, the land has been stripped from what it was when the estate fence was put in, and what's left of it now. I believe picture was number 3 or 4 was the estate fence. This is the way Toronto Estate was stabilizing the land.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously it's not stable. Everything has been eroded.
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem is obviously holding this bond money has really nothing to do with that. If you have an issue with what's going on, if that's going on at your property, then your recourse is to sue the developer. It has nothing to do with the surety bond. We can't hold it, as you just heard.
And nobody told me that before. I traveled 4 years seeing different communities. Nobody ever told me to hire a lawyer. They just said,
But you have a lawyer already.
Yes, I do. Well,
right,
yes,
okay.
I do. Regarding, it's unfortunate. So my only option is suing the developer.
That your recourse is to take it upon yourself and do whatever you have to do to try and rectify the situation. But the county is not involved at this point anymore because the surety bond needs to be released.
I have 2 questions. First, I have one question, one comment. Regarding the public works, there were supposed to be 2 sidewalks on the north side and on the south side. There's only 1 sidewalk, and there is no sidewalk on the other side, and that was supposed to be there. And the reason the other sidewalk is not there is because the developer put the foundation of lot number 6 too close to the road, and because of that, he cannot install a sidewalk. And for me, or any of my guests or any of my neighbors, they cannot walk through there now. So there was supposed to be another sidewalk, and it's not there, so it's not complete. And the reason for that is because I found out is lot number 6 is being evaluated because it's in the wrong place where it should have been. So it's not complete. It's piece there.
Yeah, I mean, again, that has nothing to do with the surety bond, though, really.
Yeah, but it has
So,
to do with Public Works and Improvement.
I couldn't really respond to it. I don't know, what the plans were, or if they changed, and why. That's something that you'd have to talk to the developer about.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the legislators?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lapidus, just a quick question for you. So our concern here was that, there were certain deficiencies in the final construction that involved the county in some way. And when you first came before us, you had an attorney with you.
Yes.
And she was able to, both in writing and before us through testimony, articulate what the concerns were.
Right.
And as a result, this item again was first tabled, I think, back in February. Since that time, though, you've been before us a couple of times. We've never heard from your legal counsel at all, which is telling also because, had there been a viable cause of action against the county in some respects, and that was articulated by your counsel, that might have given us more of a reason to take pause here. I'm just concerned that, and I needed to hear from the representatives of the county DPW that, in their professional opinion, all of the covenants, conditions, and requirements of the county have been taken care of, and we have an obligation to release the escrow, and that there's nothing outstanding. So, I echo the Chairwoman Schaefer's position in that, you do have recourse in the courts if your rights have been violated and there are certain consequential damages to the construction. But you need to consult with counsel and find out how you can direct those efforts because, right off the bat, perhaps the developer fell quite short in certain respects, in a lot of ways with regard to your property and some of the others. And I don't know if the town of Oyster Bay, when they did their sign-offs, had any role in this as well. But I was waiting to hear, hopefully today, from someone on your behalf or yourself, where in fact the county has fallen short. Where have they obligated to do something else before that escrow is released? And that's what I was concerned about, as a legislator for every individual in this county. And, unfortunately, we haven't heard that today from you or anyone on your behalf as to what the county's obligation is at this point in time. So, based on that, I see no reason why the bond shouldn't be released.
Thank you.
I just like to say one thing. The main concern is, as I wrote in the letter, the town of Oyster Bay Building Code Enforcement told me that they will be filing violations on the property because of the water runoff and regrading, which was not caused by me. I followed all my legal avenues from day one, with surveys, with notices, pictures, as my land was being regraded, excavated, destabilized. I was not aware that this can go on. I kept on filing complaints because I was asked by the town of Oyster Bay Building Department, well, file this, show me this, take a picture. I was doing everything I was asked as the construction, I even called the police, and they told me there's nothing they can do. This is a civil matter.
Well, so if there are violations issued, then you can go defend yourself against those. If that's what's happening, then, when you go to the town of Oyster Bay with that issue, then defend yourself with that.
Town of Oyster Bay last time cost me $70,000.
Okay.
I don't mind.
Can't really,
I don't mind. I don't mind defending myself, but it's very difficult. Very difficult. And I'm filing papers to avoid this because they will file them. They told me they will. And it's obvious the land is sliding, eroding, destabilized, construction fence left on my property. Everything that I could have done, I did. But unfortunately, it got me nowhere. The construction was never stopped. There was only one violation issued against the property. They left the construction door open. and there were lots of violations if you can speak to my neighbors, but that's irrelevant here. Here I am because I did everything I was supposed to do. I documented it, I filed.
Then
I
you
never
sh-
got one report.
You should have a good defense then. It's
was-
just not here, you know, this
It's
is
not
not where, this is not the place to address it, because we can't really help you with that. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so
Legislator
much.
Rhodes?
Yeah, I think, well, you summarized it very well. You're simply not in the right venue. And, you know, you have counsel. Counsel certainly should be qualified to be able to advise you of your legal rights. You know, it sounds as though you have several avenues of recourse. But with respect to the county infrastructure that was to be guaranteed by the surety bond, there seems to be universal agreement that the conditions with respect to the release of that bond, as it pertains to the county's infrastructure, have been met. So there is there's no reason for us, and in fact we'd be putting the county at risk by failing to release that surety bond. But that's not to say that you don't have other avenues, and your counsel has the opportunity to be able to advise you of those.
Two things that I will be done. First of all, the reason for my counsel not being here, she said, Alex, you spend so much money with me. Just go by yourself. You know your property. That's why she's not here. And the second thing is, I do appreciate your time, and thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no other comments from the legislators, all those in favor of passing clerk item number 11-22, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the item passes unanimously. Okay, so we'll be putting Planning Development Environment Committee in recess.
Okay, then the Rules Committee now will call for a vote on the same item, which is clerk item number 11, 2022. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. And we'll put rules in recess and call the full legislature. So, Mr. Pulitzer, can you please call the roll?
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Roll call. Deputy Presiding Officer Howard Copel. Alternate Deputy Presiding Officer Denise Ford. Legislator Sheila Bino. Thank you. Legislator Carrier Solage.
Here.
Legislator Debbie Muley. Legislator C. William Gaylord III.
Present.
Legislator John Giuffre.
Here.
Legislator Mazi Philippe. Legislator Delia Dirigi Witten. Legislator James Kennedy. Legislator Thomas McKevitt. Legislator Laura Schaefer.
Here.
Legislator John Ferretti. Legislator Arnold Drucker. Legislator Rosemarie Walker. Legislator Joshua Lafazan. Legislator Stephen Rhodes. Minority Leader Kavan Abrahams. Presiding Officer Richard Nicolello. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We have one item, resolution number 88 of 2022. It's item 3, a resolution to authorize the release of the surety bond and escrow deposit covering improvements on the map of Toretta Estates situated in Farmingdale. Moved by Legislator Deputy Presiding Officer Copel, seconded by Legislator Gaylor. We're going to note for the record that Legislator McKevitt is leaving the chambers. He's recusing himself and will not be participating in any further debate, discussion, or a vote on this. All right, so we have a motion by and a second. Items before us. Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. Motion to adjourn? Moved by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator Walker. All in favor of adjourning? Signify by saying aye. Those opposed? We're adjourned. What's public safety next?
Good afternoon. At this time, I will call Public Safety Committee to order, and I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Madam. Legislator Deborah Muley, Legislator Sheila Bino, Ranking Member Delia Dirigi-Whitten, Legislator John Ferretti, Legislator Mazi Palip,
Here.
Vice Chairman Stephen Rhodes, Chairwoman Denise Ford. We have a quorum, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir. There are 3 items on the agenda today, which are clerk item numbers 133-22, 142-22, and 144-22. Clerk item number 133-22 is a local law to amend section 21-29.10 of the Nassau County Administrative Code with respect to catalytic converters. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator Phillips, seconded by Legislator Rhodes. The item is before us. Okay? This proposed legislation is introduced by Legislators Gayler, Giuffre, and Pilip, and its purpose is to prevent the theft of catalytic converters by implementing certain reporting requirements with respect to their sale. Did you want to finish? I'm going to hand this over. I'm going to allow Legislator Pilip to continue with this, as she was one of the sponsors.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer Ford. According to the National Insurance Crime Bureau, catalytic converter robbery increased by 325% between 2019 and 2020. This have been the case in my district. This robbery is simply to commit, taking merely seconds to complete, and is very costly, requiring victim to spend over $1,000 in repairs. As Deputy Presiding Officer Ford stated, Nassau County must do everything in its power to stop these crimes. With the passage of this proposed local law, a potential catalytic converter robbery will stop, and if it's happening, the police will be able to track where the stolen device came from. Thank you again. I'm hopefully that this proposed local law receive bipartisan support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Legislator Pilip. And it's interesting to note that when you speak with the officers who tell us about the theft of these catalytic converters, it can be done in a matter of seconds, if not even seconds, basically. And you know, they've had, I think, videos where a car could be at an intersection, people jump out. The next thing you know, that the catalytic converter has been removed from the car, causing a lot of cost to the car owner, anywhere from $1,000 to even like sometimes $8,000. Recently, they took them out of school buses. So this is a crime that's on the rise, and it is something that is very concerning to all of us. So with this legislation, we're hoping that we can help curtail this crime by requiring that anybody who's going to buy these, I guess these junkyards and other places that deal with auto parts, that they know who they're buying from, and trying to get everything registered so we know exactly who's selling it, where it's coming from. Any other comments, Legislator Millay?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I certainly recognize the need for us to do something. I just want to make sure that we're doing exactly what needs to be done. So I just have a couple questions. Who can make requests for inspections? Is it limited to Department of Consumer Affairs and the Police Department, or can anyone make those requests?
To go.
Yeah, under the law, it's those two specific departments. However, we can request, if you wanted to, as a legislator, if you're advised of a particular complaint, you can request of those two departments that they make an inspection.
So if that happens, if someone loses their catalytic converter due to theft, they would go to the Police Department or the Department of Consumer Affairs? How does that work?
If someone were to lose their catalytic converter, if their catalytic converter were to be stolen,
yeah.
Yes, I mean, I'm assuming that they would be reporting that to the Nassau County Police Department. The Police Department would have the opportunity, obviously, to be able to check the registry of dealers. That's certainly within their purview. But yes, those would be the two departments that would have enforcement responsibilities under the legislation.
Okay, and do we have the necessary resources to make sure that this gets handled?
Yeah, but the police officers can do an investigation.
Right.
And also with consumer affairs, you know, there are times when, like, we may call up, like, you may get, somebody may say that when I go shopping, I think that they're overcharging me for whatever I'm purchasing. So they'll go out and do an inspection on weights and measures and things like that. So this would be the same type of enforcement, that they would then go out to be able to check the records of the people in regard to the catalytic, if they're selling catalytic converters, they have to make sure that they know where they got them from.
I know, we certainly had many conversations with regards to Department of Consumer Affairs and their backlog. So I'm just, that's why I'm asking the question, to make sure that we're not creating a law that we can't properly enforce. I mean, this is a very necessary thing to have happen, so I just want to make sure that we're properly resourced.
I'm with you on that one, because I think that we need to bring more people in, you know, to make sure that whatever laws we are passing, that they are effectively enforced.
Yeah. Legislator Rhodes, did you want to say anything else? Or is that it? Nope. Okay. Thank you.
Say the minor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, you know, I'm going to support this bill, but I am concerned that, you know, it really is going to drive the folks, the criminals who are stealing these catalytic converters, just to sell them in Suffolk and sell them in Queens, or, you know, they're going to sell them right outside of Nassau. So we still have to be vigilant, and we still have to implore the police to do as much as they can on this issue, because this is not going to stop folks. They've hit the gold mine here. They understand it. Yeah, they understand that they can sell these things at a tremendous amount of revenue for themselves. And I understand just the other day they stole 2 out of a van, I think in your neck of the woods, in Glen Cove, and that they would sell on the resale on it is like $11,000 was for the both of them. That's what they reported on News 12. So like I said, I'm going to support this, but it's really only going to drive the sellers of these things outside of Nassau. And if our friends to the east and the west don't get on board to do something here or the state at some level, we're really not solving the issue. But thank you.
And I agree with you, Legislator Bino. I think that it has to be a combined effort, and especially even in the state, because like what's going to stop them from like running into Suffolk and selling out there? It's crazy. I mean, the next thing you know, they're going to be making these things with GPS on them, so that we'll know where the catalytic converter is. You know, I mean, it's like strict. You know, like you never. It just is amazing. I don't even know what. I'm not a car person, so I couldn't even tell you where it is. You know, so but yeah. Oh, underneath. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Legislator Rowe.
To Legislator Bino's point, we actually have reached out to Suffolk County. I believe we've also reached out to the City of New York. Reached out to the City of New York, Westchester County as well, to see if we can get them to adopt a regional approach, specifically as a result of your concern. I mean, it certainly makes sense. You know, but I think that this is really an effort for us to reposition consequences that have been removed, you know, in my opinion, as a result of cashless bail and criminal justice reform. You know, you're seeing there's no coincidence behind you seeing an uptick in this type of crime with the removal of consequences. And you know, even though the consequences now are being placed on the dealership, that's the only avenue that we have the opportunity to be able to place those consequences. So now there's going to have to be a registry. Now the dealers are going to have to be responsible for maintaining it. And if it turns out that they are not, there's going to be consequences behind them doing that. So as to what the source of the catalytic converter is. So, you know, again, I think this is just another example of us trying to react to a problem that has largely been created by the state as a result of casus bail and criminal justice reform, but we're going to continue to try and find ways to address these problems to the extent that we can. But we're attempting to take a regional approach, as you correctly note.
On topic, yes, I do believe that that's what we should be doing. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? I think that there are VIN numbers on like 7 parts of the car. Like the doors have VIN numbers, but it just makes sense to me that they would put it on.
Thank you, Legislator Ford. I want to thank the sponsors of this legislation, of course, Legislator Pilip and Legislator Giuffre and our Colonel Bill Gaylor. Thank you. I share some of the concerns, Legislator Bino. I think you're right. It's a shame that we even have to really be passing something like this. It's I know in my community the car thefts are skyrocketing, and I had one right on my block. There was another one in Wantagh that I read about in Legislator Rhodes' district just a couple days ago. It was actually at gunpoint, which I hate to say that's a relief, but I know at least if it's at gunpoint, they're not let out with an appearance ticket. So, look, I think that this is something that's unfortunately necessary, and I want to thank the sponsors for it. I will support it, but I think that we do need a regional approach as it relates to this bill, but what we really need is a statewide overhaul on some of the reforms that were put in place, which are causing us to have these discussions and put these local laws in place to begin with. Thank you.
To Legislator Ferretti's point, and I know we're getting a little far afield here, but not only did we have the carjacking in Wantagh, but we also had a stolen vehicle in Merrick. And just to illustrate the absurdity of the example, they were actually, the police, through outstanding police work, was able to actually capture the individual and get back the stolen vehicle. When the suspect was actually apprehended, he had keys to 3 other vehicles on him that were not his. This individual was released on an appearance ticket. It's when I talk about problems that the state is creating and us having to deal with the consequences, that's what I'm talking about.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. All those in favor of passing this item, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The item passes unanimously. All right. Clerk, item number 142-22 is an ordinance supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the Traffic Safety Board. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator Bino, seconded by Legislator Ferretti. The item is before us. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Ken Arnold, Commissioner of Public Works. This item is a supplemental appropriation for $1.121 million to be put into the traffic safety budget. It's funded through fines received by the state for DWI, and this funding is passed along to various agencies to implement a DWI program.
Thank you. Any questions from the legislators? Oh, any public comment? I see none. All those in favor of passing this item, please signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? The item passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Clerk, item number 144-22 is an ordinance supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the police department. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator Pilip, seconded by Legislator Millet. The item is before us. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, William Field, Inspector with the Police Department. Item 144-22 is several grant appropriations. The first one, which ends in 02, is a supplemental appropriation of $96,061 in funds received from the United States Department of Justice related to the JAG grant, Justice Assistance Grant. This is to prevent and control crime initiative. It can be used for state and local initiatives, technical assistance, training, personnel, equipment, supplies, and other support. Do you want me to do them all or individually? There's three appropriations. Should I? Yeah. The second appropriation ends in 03. This is for the 2022 surveillance vehicle apprehension vehicle enforcement program, or the SAVE grant. This is for an appropriation of $145,869 from the New York State Department of Criminal Justice. This is to assign police officers and detectives on an overtime basis to investigate and identify individuals that commit the crime of vehicle theft or theft-related crimes. The last appropriation ends in 04. This is a $79,492.50 from the New York State Department of Criminal Justice. It's part of our LiveScan project for 2022 to procure new LiveScan fingerprint machines.
All right, any questions from the legislators? Any public comment? Come right up.
Meta J. Maraday, county resident. Actually, I was just passing through, but I'm just a little curious. With the previous discussion as it pertained to the catalytic converters, and I agreed with legislator Muley and Bino with regard to the concerns of the implementation and the additional work that's going to be put on the police department with the registration process. I'm definitely for it, but there are other parts of cars that are being removed. So I don't know if this is like the start of something that needs to be maybe reviewed and expanded upon. And I think, as Legislator Rhodes commented, you know, involving Suffolk County as well as New York City, I think we need to, as opposed to maintaining adversarial aspects with our state and federal representatives for various and sundry reasons we can agree or disagree upon, we need to work better together. And come with generalized formats across the region and across the state that's going to be beneficial for residents. And I think possibly maybe looking into this grant, the surveillance apprehension vehicle process, I think that might be something that we could look into that could benefit this process with regard to the catalytic converters. And also with regard to appropriation for the police department, I'm trying to put a plea again out to all of the legislators that we have to address the traffic safety living around the corner from the most recent fatality. Literally, the young lady who ran into, that was around the corner from my house. And I had to call the police department to ask why helicopters were circling my house at 6 o'clock in the morning, just to be told that a 66-year-old man got killed by someone who was driving while intoxicated. So we need to address that, particularly on Grand Avenue. And crossing guards, it's not the responsibility of the police department to take the time away from the work that they have to do and the added work that they get put on from this body for public safety. I get it. But we have to do a better outreach and appeal to get people to stand up and support efforts to cross our children and our seniors. Short period of time, okay? I stood before this body to advocate getting more money. I'm in my community trying to encourage people to do that, but we need our elected officials to step up to get our police officers back on the patrols, back in the service that they are supposed to do, because they have to take away their time. And again, I live right by Grand Avenue, and I've almost been hit myself by people who have speeded by, and the officer cannot leave their post because they have to cross the children and seniors and are disabled and et cetera. So again, I'm hoping that we can look at how we're getting these grant funds to better serve the community. And again, when it's grant funded, it's not coming out of the taxpayers' pockets. Because I've already said enough how much taxes we all pay in Nassau County. So I thank you all very much. I wish you all well.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, all those in favor of passing this, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The item passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. There's no other business in front of this committee. May I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator Ferretti. All those in favor? Aye. This committee is adjourned. Thank you very much. Public Works is next.
Okay, at this time, I'll call the Public Works Committee to order. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Chairman. Public Works and Parks, roll call. Carrie A. Solage.
Here.
Legislator Arnold Drucker. Ranking Member Sheila Bino. Legislator James Kennedy. Legislator Laura Schaefer. Vice Chairman John Giuffre.
Present.
Chairman C. William Gaylord III.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. So there are 3 items on the agenda today, which are clerk items number 137-22, 139-22, and 146-22. Clerk item number 137-22 is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an agreement between the County of Nassau, acting on behalf of the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Museums, and Friends of Garvey's Point Museum and Preserve. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator Salages, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. The item is before us. Who do we have from the administration?
Darcy Bellier, Parks Commissioner. Good afternoon again, everybody.
Good afternoon.
This is Friends of Garvey's Point Museum, an MOA, to provide administrative and professional services to the county in support of the museum. They had an agreement in place that has expired. That was in '07 that was created. And basically their functions are to operate the museum gift shop, which if you haven't been there and you need a gift, ladies, definitely I recommend you take a stop in there. Very unique items. Fundraising, educational programs and special events. And they've had some recent ones that have been met with great success. And then we have another one, an Indian powwow. They're actually partnering with the Montaukett tribe from out in Montauk. So there's some great family things going on there. And they also recently offered boater education classes through the Friends of Garvey's Point. The full board includes the now retired former museum director. So that we're looking for a 10-year agreement with an option to renew for an additional 10 years. And the first agreement, again, was in 2007. It was renewed for additional 5 years, and since, is expiring.
All right, thank you. So, quick question or two. How do we monitor the collection of the funds from fundraising, sales, powwows, whatever? Money's coming in.
Through quarterly reports, which are submitted to the Parks accounting team.
And likewise, I would guess expenditures or?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. All right. So the Parks Department provides the oversight on the financial
Correct,
component?
yes.
Okay. And those monies that are collected, are they transferred into the general account or operating fund, or?
No, it stays with the Friends of Garvey's, and they are using that for like startup costs for the next event, to purchase more items for the gift shop, etc.
Okay, and is there a point in time where the balance becomes a certain level and then the excess is transferred over?
No, you know what, I haven't gotten that far in my job to know that, but I don't believe so.
Just was curious, okay.
Yeah, I'll look into that for you.
I have no further questions. Does anybody else, legislators, have questions? Committee members? Public? Comments, questions? There being no further debate or discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor of passing this, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
This item passes unanimously. Clerk item number 139-22 is a resolution authorizing the County of Nassau to participate in a federal aid transportation project, providing for the resurfacing of various county roads under capital project H61587-75G with a PIN number of 0761.18, and authorizing the county executive of the County of Nassau to execute the agreement on behalf of the county with the New York State Department of Transportation for the advancement of said aid for transportation projects in Nassau County, New York. May I have a motion? Moved by Vice Chairman Legislator Giuffre, seconded by Legislator Bino. I see we have Commissioner Arnold from the Department of Public Works to speak about this item. Sir, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Ken Arnold, Public Works. So this is a master agreement that allows the county to accept funding from New York State that's associated with the TIP. This project is for resurfacing, as you stated. The funding received will be $5 million. Total project cost is $6 million.
Is there any debate or discussion? I see Legislator Drucker.
Thank you, Chairman Gaylor. I have one quick question, Commissioner Arnold. When would this resurfacing start to take place?
It's our intent to have this part of the 2023 resurfacing season.
So 2023.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further debate or discussion? Any public comment? Ask the question. What area? Whoop.
Commissioner,
We got one more question, sorry.
Is this for Old Country Road from 107 to 135?
That is one of the roads, yes. Also Salisbury Park Drive, and then the expressway service roads, north and south parts of them.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, do we have any public comment?
Mita J. Maraday, yes. One of my questions was answered with regard to exactly which road, and it just furthers my comment as to which roads get designated, because unfortunately we have so many roads in Nassau County that need resurfacing. And the third part of my question, again, with this list, since we're talking about federal and state dollars, I just want to make sure that the county is in compliance with regard to the outreach, inclusion, and utilization of service-disabled, minority, women-owned businesses. You know, there was a hot minute when at least here I would kind of hear something about a reference to a contractor that was woman-owned, minority-owned, or service-disabled veteran, but I'm not seeing or hearing that. So that is becoming of great concern to me, because we have a budget here that rivals many countries, and unfortunately we still don't seem to address the fact that we have a large percentage of our population who need to get work to stay here as well, and they don't seem to be getting that work. So that is those are my questions. My first part of the question, what roads exactly pertain to this particular piece of the budget, was answered, but my second question has to do with the inclusion process and what is the determination process for the selection of roads for these projects. Thank you.
And I think those are very good questions. I'm glad the first part was answered by Commissioner Arnold, but if Commissioner Arnold could return and just address how do we ensure in the bidding process that minority-owned, veteran-owned businesses are considered?
So this being a state contract, the state sets DBE goals that are requirements that are in this bid for a certain percentage of MW and SDVOB firms through the DBE goal that they set. As to how roads are selected, the department meets on a regular basis with its maintenance and its permit offices and its engineering offices. We look at the roads, we rate them based on complaints and what they're seeing in the field, and that's how roads are selected. We are looking towards doing a countywide assessment in the next year or so to reset what we need to do next, as we've done a good majority of the roads over the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay, so back to the first part of your answer. The state sets the goals
for state contracts. This is one of them. If it's a county-funded contract only, then it's just Appendix EE, I believe, which is the best efforts.
Okay. All right. Is there any other further public comment? All right. So, all in favor of passing this item, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item passes unanimously. The last item is clerk item number 14622, which is an ordinance making certain determination pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act and authorizing the county executive on behalf of the County of Nassau to execute a release of approximately 20 feet release of an approximate 20-foot easement reserved for highway purposes situated in Port Washington, the town of which sits within the town of North Hempstead in the County of Nassau, New York. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator Kennedy, seconded by Legislator Drucker. The item is before us.
Yes, Nicholas Hernandez, Deputy County Attorney. This was an easement that was granted to the county approximately 40 to 50 years ago for the proposed widening of the Port Washington, the Middle Neck Road area down the end. And that for purposes of that, we had retained a 20-foot easement over a portion of property that was then owned by a Mr. Scrofani, which was years ago. The Department of Public Works has later determined that we would not be widening this road, and some of the other easements that were granted were released years ago, but recently another gentleman bought the property, and he had and the title company and the bank, which he's doing the refinancing, had both requested, even though the document, the retained easement contained language that said if the property is not used for highway purposes, the easement would be released. But it didn't specify what the conditions were in the release, so the title company decided that we'd have to go through a formal process to release the easement for them to accept that the easement is released. So we went through OSPAC, the Open Space Committee, we went through planning, we had a secret determination that that there'd be no adverse impact on anything. In accordance with prior practice, we are collecting $500 for the release of easement, which is basically what was done in the past, like 10 years ago when we released these sort of easements. And we went through the processes, and here we are. There's no detriment to the county because the property would never be used for highway purposes. And it is owned by the gentleman in question, Montauk 3 LLC, which is an entity which is just seeking this ministerial item which has to be eventually recorded at the clerk's office.
Okay, so if I were to sum it up, it would be, this is an easement that runs with the land. The property owner has made a request because this strip of land is not being used for which the easement intended it to be used. So my question would be the adjoining neighbor properties also, is there an easement on their properties, and are those easements being released?
This is the only neighbor that has requested at this time. We did find other records of easements retained in the area that have already been released many years ago, and usually this comes up when somebody's doing a refinance or sale of property, and when the title companies and or banks say they want formal documentation, we go through this on a fairly regular basis.
Got it. Okay, very good. Any debate or discussion? Is there any public comment? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item passes unanimously. There's no other business before this committee. May I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Legislator Giuffre, seconded by Legislator Bino. All in favor? Aye. All right, the committee's now adjourned. We'll be followed by the Health Committee.
I'd like to call the Health and Social Services Committee to order and ask the clerk to please take the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Legislator Joshua Lafazan. Thank you. Legislator Arnold Drucker. Ranking Member Delia Dirigi Witten. Legislator C. William Gaylor III.
Present.
Legislator Laura Schaefer. Vice Chairwoman Mazi Palip.
Here.
Chairwoman Rosemary Walker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. There is one item on the agenda. It is clerk item 143-22. It is an ordinance supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance connection with the health department. May I have a motion, please, by legislator Gaylor, seconded by legislator Drucker.
Good afternoon. Andy Simone, Health Department. Item 143-22 is a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $26,560 for funds to be released from the Center for Disease Control. These grant funds will be used for public health infrastructure, emergency response, and preparedness planning. Any questions?
Any questions by the legislators? Any public comment? Hearing none, all those in favor of clerk item 143-22 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Then this will move on to finance. And just before you go, I just want to thank you and thank all those who volunteered at the marathon a little over a week ago on a beautiful day, thank God. But you were all amazing and did a great job, and I just can't thank you enough. Those are some of the things that the department does, and many of them were volunteers that were there that day. So
thank you so much, and thanks for spending time with us that day. We appreciate it. It's a good thing it wasn't this past weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Okay, hearing no other business, motion to adjourn by legislator Philippe, seconded by legislator Delia Dridgy-Witten. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. We are adjourned, and finance. And Finance Committee is next. Marcy, was this mine or was this yours?
Members of the Finance Committee, please join us on the dais. Mike, would you do the honors, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Roll call. Legislator Joshua Lafazan. Legislator Carrier Solage.
Here.
Thank you. Ranking Member Arnold Drucker. Legislator Rosemary Walker. Legislator Thomas McKevitt. Vice Chairman John Ferretti. Chairman Howard Copel. We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, we're going to start out with a motion to suspend the rules because we have an addendum. And it is moved by Ms. Walker and seconded by Mr. McKevitt. All those in favor of suspending the rules, please say aye. Any opposed? The rules are suspended. Thank you. We have a number of, most of our items actually, which have gone through previous committees and are being consented to by members of both the majority and minority, don't require any further debate. Those numbers are 139 of 22, 142, 143, 144, and 146. Motion by Mr. Drucker, seconded by Mr. McKevitt. All those in favor of those items, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those items are unanimous. Thank you. Number 134 is a resolution providing for the issuance of warrant, directing the Treasury to pay to the supervisor of several towns and villages and cities various sums in respect of mortgage taxes, That motion is made by Mr. Ferretti, and it is seconded by Mr. Lafazan. Anyone have any question or comments with respect to that item? All those in favor of that item, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Number 134 is unanimous. Thank you. Number 149 on the addendum is an ordinance supplemental to an appropriation ordinance in connection with OMB. Motion by Ms. Walker and seconded by Mr. Drucker.
Good afternoon, Chris Nolan, Office Management and Budget. Item 14922 appropriates ARP local fiscal recovery funds for a college summer intern program in the amount of $250,000. The program, which will be administered by the Office of Human Resources, is open to Nassau County residents attending college or students attending colleges in Nassau County. The intent of the program will help to mitigate financial barriers that an unpaid internship may represent for certain students, and it also provides financial incentives to students to participate in a widely recognized learning experience that supports degree completion and future employment.
And what is we're funding from this?
It's a paid summer college summer internship program.
Where's funding coming from?
From the ARP funds, from the local fiscal recovery funds under ARP.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, Mr. Drucker.
What's the total amount?
It's $250,000.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Hearing none. All those in favor of this item, number 149, please say aye. Anyone opposed? No one opposed. That's unanimous. Mr. Lafazan moves to adjourn, and Ms. Walker seconds it. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. I guess we're back to rules.
Okay, let's call the Rules Committee back. First thing we need is a motion to suspend the rules since we have an addendum. Moved by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell. All in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Rules are suspended. So we have a consent calendar of items that just went through other committees. Item 11, 22, item 11, item 133, item 134, 137, 139, 142, 143, 144, 146, and 149. And those items just went through other committees. Motion by Minority Leader Abrahams, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. Any debate and discussion on those items? Any public comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, carries unanimously. Item 135 is a resolution setting forth the officers and employees deemed to hold policy-making positions for filing year 2022 relating to calendar year 2021, who shall be required to file annual statements of financial disclosure. Motion by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Rhodes. Any debate or discussion on this item? Nope. Any public comment? We're good. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, carries unanimously. Items 140 and 141. These are resolutions authorizing the county executive to execute intermunicipal agreements with the Levittown Union Free School District and the Belmore Fire District. Motion by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator DeRidge Whitten. Any debate or discussion on these items? Any public comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, carries unanimously. Item 145, an ordinance allowing the Nassau County Police Department to donate one surplus tow truck to the Carlisle Fire Company in Milford, Delaware. Moved by Legislator Bino, seconded by Legislator DeRidge Whitten. I see you coming up, Inspector Field.
Good afternoon. William Field, Inspector with the Police Department. Item 145-22 is a request to donate a 1979 auto car tow truck from our police department to the Carlisle Fire Company in Milford, Delaware. The vehicle is used to, the Carlisle Fire Department is looking to use the vehicle to assist with extraditing vehicles from waterways and marshland in its service area. We were able to locate, we were put in contact with this fire department through the Terry Farrell Firefighters Fund.
Okay, the tow truck from 1979 is still functional, huh?
My understanding is it needs a lot of work. Engine, transmission, there's also some issues with some of the cabling, so it needs some work.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Any public comment? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, carries unanimously. Item 147 is a resolution to confirm the county executive's appointment of Michael Perry to the Assessment Review Commission. Motion by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. Okay, that is before us. Any debate or discussion?
Yeah, we're going to, as we always do, we're going to pass through Mr. Perry in hopes that he'll be able to meet with us in the next couple of weeks. I believe the next meeting is on a Wednesday at the Armory. No, I thought you guys told me Wednesday. All right, I stand corrected. It's on a Monday night. Looking forward to that night meeting as well, and then looking forward to meeting Mr. Perry.
Yeah. All right. Any further debate or discussion? Any public comment? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. 148 of 2022 is a local law to amend the county government law of Nassau County in relation to establishing a Nassau County Movie, Television, and Digital Media Commission. Moved by Deputy Presiding Officer Copel, seconded by Minority Leader Abrahams. Any debate or discussion on this item?
I just have one question. Are we still going to have the other film commission that we already have? Or are we going to dismantle the one that's in place now?
Hi, how are you? Chris Lemoyne from the administration. There is no film commission in terms of what this piece of legislation presents. That ended in 2004. But the current individuals that work, I believe, in the Parks Department that process, the permits and do the paperwork with respect to any productions will still be in place, of course, yes.
Yeah, because I think the website shows, do we have the members on that?
Sorry.
Yeah, okay, because from what yeah, Debbie, what was her last name? I'm sorry. Debbie Markowitz was the director.
I don't think she is director anymore, and I believe there is an employee, 1 or 2 employees in the Parks Department currently handling the permitting. But this entity would be, a resource to help, gain business in the, media field to the county.
Okay, so maybe we could just correct the website to have the correct wording and list the members of once that those
Right,
are
once
established,
this passes, hopefully, and we have the members set up, of course.
Okay,
Yes.
no, I think it's great that we're getting that revenue.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Any public comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, carries unanimously. Legislator Rhodes. Motion to adjourn, seconded by Legislator Bino. All in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, we're adjourned.
Do I have to close the committee? Planning? Yeah, we'll close next time.
you.